Hello Cubs, Professor Pete here. Going to tell you a few stories here for your Scrap Heap challenge for our 100th anniversary Cub Camp, which is amazing, isn't it? 100 years. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. Well, basically I've made a time machine, which I'll explain to you in a minute how it works, and I'm going to tell you 3 different stories, one in the past, one in the present and one into the future, okay? And your leaders will let you know exactly what model will be chosen for you to make, alright, or models indeed. So that's what we're going to do, but let me tell you a little bit about how all of this works, alright? This is a similar time machine to the one used in Back to the Future. What I've got here are 3 flux capacitors in here, and plus a knife and fork of course, and what we call optics, okay? Very similar to Back to the Future, but it's a little bit more advanced because that film now is quite old. So I'll explain how it works. What happens is this is called an optic, and through looking through here I can see into the future, and that's where I got my stories from, or indeed into the past, okay? So let me explain how it works. By firing up this and placing them on my head very carefully, okay, I can look through here and see into the future. It's quite amazing. Now by moving this lever this way, I go into the past. There it will be the current time, okay, and here it goes way into the future, and that's how it works. So I can see through these into the past, the present and the future, and that's how it works. So I've had a lot of fun actually making it, and a lot of surprises as well when I've looked into the past and of course the future. Right, so let me tell you the first thing I saw. When I moved the lever back to start with and looked through the optics, I went back 100 years, and I went back to one of the very first Cub camps, and on that Cub camp Mrs. Briggs, who was the arcaler, she knew a farmer, and the farmer was kind enough to take us to Cub camp using a traction engine and a trailer, because not many people then had cars and there weren't any coaches about, so we went there. Now a traction engine, I don't know if you've ever seen one, you can sometimes see them at these transport rallies. They're really exciting things. They've got sort of a long tube for a boiler, up the end is a great big long tall chimney, at the back is a little square compartment for the driver and the fireman, okay. At the front are the 2 front wheels. They're spoked, all the wheels are spoked wheels like old wagon wheels, and the front wheels steer by doing that, alright. Bit different to your dad's car, which go this way and that way, but these, the whole axle moved. It's quite different, and it's all connected to a chain, and it was quite hard work turning this handle that the driver had to do to actually steer the thing. So in this little back compartment we had another guy, apart from the driver. He was a fireman, and he'd be shoveling coal into the boiler to make the steam, to make the thing work, because the whole thing worked by steam like the old-fashioned steam engines. On the back were 2 great big wheels, right? Again, they were spoked wheels, big wheels, all connected up, and on top of the boiler was a little piston going backwards and forwards like mad, connected to the big wheels and driving the whole thing along. It was towing a big trailer, and the trailer had 4 wheels and no seats, and that's what we were in. We were actually sat on straw bales. Those were the seats, no proper seats at all. So there's all these cubs and Mrs. Briggs the arcaler, okay, going off to camp in the trailer towed by a traction engine. And believe me, when it went uphill, it coughed and spluttered and all black smoke came out, and sometimes we would get to cubs and there'd be all bits of black all over our faces. But it was a fantastic way of going to camp all those many years ago, and it was very our thanks to the farmer for taking us to cub camp like that. And of course cub camp was just an ordinary field, all right, but it was very exciting. Well, I was so amazed that my time machine actually worked, I moved the lever forward halfway, like so. I looked through the optics, okay, and I found myself in 2016, and actually I was in Oxford again with all the cubs. Where were we? Well, we were in a coach, a modern coach of course, and we were outside the BMW Mini factory in Oxford. And what happened was, our Kayla had arranged for us to go on a trip to see how the Minis were made. Well, it's quite amazing. It looked as if it was in the future, but it was now. It was 2016. And they're made like this. They're sort of a railway line that they're stood on, and they slowly move forward. I mean, quite slowly, okay? But while they're moving forward, they assemble them. They put them all together. So it starts off with just a sort of empty body shell. Just like a box, an empty box almost, all right? They don't always have doors or bonnets or boots fitted on them at this stage, all right? And so it moves forward slightly, and then there's these robots. Not robots like this. No, these are robots sort of like small cranes, I suppose. And they come down and they pick things up and they put it in the car. Now, it was quite amazing to see, because one of the first things that went in was the engine. And this robot, it picks up an engine, moves over and plonks it into the Mini. Then another robot comes from the side, and that's got the dashboard, you know, with all the dials and switches, and that slid in that way. Then a steering wheel was fitted. Then another robot had the headlamps. Doom, moved on like this, clunk, and fitted them on the front of the car. After that, the seats went in. They slid in, back seats, and the driver's seat, passenger seat. It's quite amazing really, seeing it all done. And then there were robots with like rubber suckers on, and they picked up a windscreen, right, went round like that, of course rubber suckers so it didn't damage it, clunk, and the windscreen was in place. And then finally the humans wired a few things up and tightened a few things up, and then the wheels had to go on and the body panels. So again, some more rubber suckers, on went the bonnet, in went the doors, on went the boot, alright, and then finally the wheels. And the wheels, they sort of came down from the ceiling and they were fitted on, and then there were these robots with like sockets that went on all the nuts at one go. If you look at your dad and mum's car, the wheels are held on by about 4 or 5 nuts. Well, so were the Minis, but they were all tightened up in one go. So they just clamped on to all the nuts. Zzz, zzz, and the nuts and the wheels are on nice and tight. And then it moves forward, and then of course it was tested. Engine works, the brake works, the lights work, the indicators work, and then it would be moved off. Oh, we were absolutely amazed to see how they were made. Mainly by, as I say, these robot things that looked like small cranes that kept lifting things and putting them into the bodies. It was fantastic. So I thought, well, that's great. What I'm going to do now is to move my lever forward and see if it works in the future, which I did. So I put the optics on, I moved the lever forward. It was working amazing. Have you ever heard of a space camp? Well, you probably haven't, because they're actually in the future, but it's where Cubs in the future go with their tents to Zeta 4 space station, which orbits the Earth. It's incredible, incredible. I travelled there by Virgin Intergalactica from Terminal 25 at Heathrow. We went in a rocket. Now, a rocket isn't like a plane. It stands up tall, like, well, you've probably seen them, of course. It stands up tall like that. No jet engines, just this one rocket. So when we were led in there by our leaders, we were all sat looking up like that. Not like I am now, right? We're all sat looking up at the sky in there. And they do have windows. And all of a sudden, whoosh, and off we went. And we actually found ourselves at the space camp. And when it got there, the rocket doesn't land, it sort of docks on, right? And then these airlocks open and we all walked through into the space camp. The space camp was like in a massive great building, like a sort of an aircraft hangar. It was really, really big. And it was fantastic. Well, of course, we went to put the tents down, but everything just floats about, right? So in order to put the tents down, you have to tie all the sort of guy ropes, you can't use tent pegs, to these sort of shackles on the floor. And that's what we did. And then we had to put our sleeping bags in. They all kept floating about, but we were told to get our mums or dads to sew some Velcro, so they stuck them to the ground sheet so they didn't float up. It was quite amazing. And then our food, well, we couldn't have any campfires unfortunately, so our food was like microwave food, but it was okay. It was really good. But it was an amazing thing, this space camp. It was amazing going there in the rocket, and of course the experience that we had on camp. And later I was watching our Kayla singing at the campfire. Oh dear, it was ever so funny. When I say campfire, it was just, you know, an electric thing. And she was singing, "We'll be orbiting the Earth when she comes," right? And she kept floating up. And by gear I had to get a rope and keep pulling her down again. But it was ever so funny, and we had a lot of laughs there. And then of course, after camp, we then had to get back into the rocket and come back to Earth. And when we came back to Earth, we didn't land that way because the space rocket did actually have wheels on. And it came in like this and it landed like that. But it was quite amazing. So that was our space camp. Gosh, what would Grandad have thought all those years ago when he had to go to camp in a car on straw bales? Amazing. And in the future they went to camp in a rocket. Quite amazing, really. Well, that's my story, Cubs. I hope you understand what I've said and enjoyed it. And jolly good luck with your models, and come round and see you later. So thanks ever so much for listening to me. See you all later. Bye bye.